I'm going to wait about a minute longer. I see everybody's really good PowerPoints and mine's really plain, so sorry. Is anybody dressing up for the costume party? Mark, you are? Okay, good. I'm dressing up. It's a competition. Songs. Oh, I don't karaoke. I'm horrible. I can do it in costume though, huh? Be a good idea. Yeah, I'd like that. I think we used to win money. Are we going to win money? Anybody know? What? This casino's killing me. Yeah, I don't know where it's at. I'm guessing the ballroom. Yeah, I'm guessing the ballroom. Okay. Okay, so I'll start up. So if you guys don't know me, my name is Clifford Benuelos. Oops. I'm the Tribal State Environmental Liaison with the Intertribal Council of Nevada. And just a real quick background on that. My position was pretty unique. Most liaisons work for federal or state agencies. I don't. I work for the tribes. So I don't have any performance review by the state of Nevada. They kind of let me just run and do what I want to do, which is nice. But it was created in 2004 out of the urging of two tribes, the Premier Lake Paiute tribe, due to state working with the state on munitions removal, and then with the Duck Valley Shopai tribe in Northeast Nevada for the Rio Tinto Superfund cleanup, and they were having problems with the state. So they urged Intertribal Council of Nevada to create a liaison. And then they said, well, we identified the EPA GAP program as funding it. So it's been around since then. Tansy Smith was the first liaison, and later William Bill Campbell, and now here I am. And so I'm a member also of the Tamok tribe of Western Shoshone. And I bring that up because before this, I was an environmental director, and previous to that, they're a roads planner and emergency manager and all sorts of stuff. But I also bring it up because it's core to consultation. I just came from a conference not too long ago for the Remembrance of the Treaty of Ruby Valley, and now is their keynote speaker. And I brought up, and it was talked about, previous to the signing of the Treaty of Ruby Valley, my family, my great-great-grandfather was a signer of the treaty. Oh, my mom's Evelyn Tamok, my grandfather was Chief Frank Tamok. And so the hereditary line of the chiefs is direct to me. And so we were promised, my family was promised land in Ruby Valley right by where the treaty was signed by the military. And later they reneged on that and it wasn't documented so well. And my great-grandfather and my grandfather used to go to DC and communicate with Congress about the land that was supposed to be the reservation for the tribe, why it was never given to the tribe. And so the military backed out on it and said all sorts of different reasons. So that's core to why I think it's important to have a tribal consultation policy, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. That's a FEMA thing. There's a presentation later, but that's FEMA's thing. And now I lost control. Everything was going well. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So items to be covered. Why have your own policy? Examples of tribal consultation, lessons learned, key items, authority, format of your consultation policy, approval process, and then implementation of it. This is really like a 6-hour class. And so I really had to indent it. This is a final version, which was really, really small. It was like turning a plan into like a memo. It's just really hard. So just bear with it. You might have a lot of questions. So why have your own policy? Federal agencies have tribal consultation policies in Region 9. Each state has consultation policies. Even many energy and mining companies have tribal consultation policies. If you don't have a consultation policy, the agency or company will subtly or overtly dictate the boundaries and the focus of your conversations and direct the consultation process. So I feel like adding, in my presentation, I'm not going to pussyfoot around it. I'm just going to tell you how it is, just to let you know. And the tribes will get frustrated with a lack of progress on communications and withdraw from meaningful consultation and look at other means to address their concerns, such as legal action or using the media, or just plain give up and look for only compensation. And Mervyn talked about that a little bit in his keynote speech. Sometimes a tribe doesn't even engage in the process because they see no way they can stop the action, or they enter the process late. That's very common, to enter the process late. A tribe's consultation policy will trump any other similar type policy, maybe not in interpretation of law or agency policy, but definitely in terms of the boundaries and focus of the conversations. A tribal policy will immediately get the attention of the groups involved in the action and will get their lawyers involved in the conversations, thereby making the process more meaningful, effective, and honest. So you may start off on a bad foot where it's a contentious relationship. I consider that good because now we're talking. Also, such a policy internally will help a tribe direct its resources and budget to ensure they have the capacity to implement the policy. Things like retaining lawyers, having a tribal historic preservation office, a point of contact for each federal and state agency, and maybe even a public information officer. Without their own policy, the agency can create the metrics to judge effectiveness of the consultation. How often have we heard agency representatives gush about the success of a certain consultation while we tribal members or representatives think to ourselves, I didn't like that. I don't think it was successful. So afterward or during the consultation, a tribe can write a brief report to the agencies and give a point-by-point report on why they consider the consultation ineffective and use their policy to show why they consider it ineffective. Then it will be on record. Examples of bad tribal consultation. In my own backyard, the Yerington Paiute tribe and the Walker River Paiute tribe have been in consultation with EPA Region 9 regarding the cleanup of the Anaconda copper mine site located right next to the Yerington Reservation. We had an art talk a few years ago there, and some of you walked the areas to see what was happening. And actually, one of the questions asked from someone was like, I heard that maybe a new copper mine could come up exactly on this location. And the state kind of was like, and that's exactly happening right now. So for many years, the Yerington Paiute tribe had been drinking bottled water paid for by EPA and later the state. Progress on how to clean up the site was moving very slowly, and fingers can be pointed at EPA, the state, the mining companies, and the two tribes. In 2018, during the previous administration, the cleanup was deferred to the state of Nevada. Both tribes were surprised, especially by the media blitz by EPA, because they want to take pictures and talk about the deferral. In a meeting shortly before the deferral, EPA Region 9 Superfund Director answered a question by a tribal representative at that meeting. He was in a firehouse in Yerington, and they asked him whether it was going to be deferred. And he said, that train has left the station. And he was being honest. And I don't want to point fingers at Enrique because I thought he was great. He was really trying to do his best job. But he was parsing his words because as a federal employee, he has to. You should expect that from an employee. He cannot tell you it's been deferred because it hasn't been, but it's going to be. That train has left the station. But the tribes, they heard something different. And I talked to them afterwards, both chairs, and they heard something different. I was trying to impress upon them, he just told you it's being deferred. And they're like, no, he would have said that. I'm like, oh, God. So examples of that, part of the consultation process with the two tribes was agreeing on a programmatic agreement. They called it something else with ARCO and MOU with the state of Nevada. Neither had been done, and these talks had been going on for more than a decade. So they were just going back to the same things, talking for a decade plus. Another item of contention was and still is the contractual consultant both tribes used to conduct work related to Anaconda. That was getting personal. It was some kind of academia back and forth, and that happens sometimes. Both tribes have a state protocol with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection on how the state will communicate and work with the tribes, but that protocol was not being followed. And later, both tribes said they no longer recognize those protocols because former councils approved them. That's a problem because trust, anytime you have some sort of agreement made, you have to trust each other. And so at this point, the tribe also is a little bit at fault because They gave their word that they're going to follow the protocol, and then they said, no, those are the other guys, but you're still the council. So that's created a problem, and that's why I think each tribe should have a tribal consultation policy. This is kind of a real quick glance at the Yarrington Protocol, and it kind of just spells out who's going to meet, why are they going to meet, how often are they going to meet, and that's really when you get to the core of it. A lot of it's designee, and I'll talk a little brief about that a little briefly later. But I just want to give you my little left-sided copy of the protocol that was in my laptop. So examples of good tribal consultation. It's blank because I've never seen it. There are a lot of tribes of EPA. I don't know if EPA, lower anybody's here, they would differ from that statement. Well, I'm going to argue about it. I have not seen it. So lessons learned for me, when agencies engage with tribes about proposed actions, they often engage after the action is proposed. How often, I mean, I've gone to so many meetings with state and federal officials where they got plans done, they got engineering specs, they got everything laid out, budgets, and now they're talking to the tribes. And tribal leaders are like, you already got it done, planned. Why are you even talking to us? And they can't say it, but they're got formality. That's why they're meeting with you. It's already going to get done. The chances of avoidance is gone. Maybe you could have a chance of mitigating the activity, but that's about it. Agencies often dictate the terms of the conversation, write the agenda for meetings, direct the tone of the conversations, look to placate the tribes, and engage in a consultation to check the box. Again, something Merv talked about regarding placating. And I think a lot of this has to do with historic trauma, because a lot of tribes don't have the capacity because of we were basically wiped out, and we're trying to rebuild ourselves, but we're still also trying to rebuild our self-confidence and getting our young ones educated. And without that confidence, we kind of back down easily. And I kind of miss some of the old leaders that really were kind of grumpy and rough, and they talked back and yelled back to the agencies. I want to see that. Agency representatives are often very friendly, nice people, and they feed us what most meetings. And I'll tell some of the people for the mining companies, your predecessor, he gave us steak. Well, how come we're getting chicken? I want steak. But I don't expect much from them. They're being nice to you for a reason. If we've all had bad relationships where, girls say it, guys say it, well, she seemed so nice at the beginning. Yeah, because she wanted something from you. If tribes allow it, items discussed in meetings are often not documented appropriately, and action items are not followed upon. So when I was started becoming engaged with the Fallon Naval Base expansion in Nevada, I was astounded by how the DoD, Department of Defense, was running the agenda, telling them what they're going to talk about, and they were not documenting the meetings. They're writing notes. There was no recording of the meeting. And so action items were adequately followed on follow-up items, but it was almost irrelevant, the action and follow-up items, because they were dictating the tone of the conversation. That is not consultation, but they were calling it that. Tribal leadership usually does not fully understand their level of authority, or worse, they think they are the authority, but are unqualified and inexperienced. Use your resources. So for tribal leaders, make sure you're engaged with or inviting your technical experts. It's very common. I would say it happens 100% of the time, almost it doesn't make sense. But they bring their lawyers to the meetings, the mining companies, BLM sometimes, Forest Service sometimes, and the tribe doesn't have their lawyer present. I don't even think you should enter the chambers where you're talking if there's a lawyer there and you don't have your lawyer. Reschedule the meeting, because they need to be there. But you should have your water quality specialist, your air quality specialist, at least do a report to prepare them, because our leadership needs us to support them. And if they say, no, I don't need your help, then you need to grab them and go, I love you. You need to listen to me. That's what you need to do. So liaisons, and that's what I am, they have an important role in tribal consultation. Figureheads, talking about liaisons now, agencies and polluters love hiring authentic Native Americans to act as their liaisons. These figureheads lack the experience in the field and the work ethic to effectively do their jobs, and tribes need to communicate their dissatisfaction with these type of employees as soon as they can, because Because one is Native American does not immediately mean that they understand Indian country or will be accepted by tribes. This does not mean a liaison has to have grown up on the res and got their education at Indian school. It means that liaisons need to be honest, true to themselves, and respect our people and leaders by listening to them and developing and nurturing relationships with work peers and tribal leadership. Your word should be strong. And so I get involved.
Liaisons. And I would prefer a Native American. I'd prefer a Native American from a tribe in that area. I'd prefer Native American
from that tribe, but I would prefer more than anything someone that has worked for tribes, not with, but for. And too often they hire some of our people that we know that person was about an hour away from living in the bars, and now they got hired and they're rebuilding their life, but they look authentic. And they're kind of smart. They know how to talk, but they really are not qualified, but they'll hire them. And they don't have the respect of the tribe because the tribe knows who they are. It's a very common tactic that agencies use. Key items, commonality. So what do federal and state agency consultation policies have in common? What do individual tribes consultation policies have in common? Now, this is what I cut a lot out of this because it was going on forever. So I'm just going to keep it really simple on this and go over the basics on federal and state agency consultation policies. But I think I found a commonality in when I was preparing for this that I like when you're constructing your tribal consultation policy. So the Biden memo, or Uniform Standards for Tribal Consultation, is what I'm going to use the most. EPA policy on consultation coordination with tribes, and USDA policy, DOI policy, DOD policy, et cetera, all the agencies. FEMA's here. I like FEMA's. Actually, I like FEMA the most out of the agencies on their consultation. And state policies. But I like that the Biden memo outlined a lot of the key parts that are common in consultation. And they must have been listening to the right people, I think. So these are just sections from it going over and how it's applicable to you writing your own consultation policy. So in it states that the United States is a unique, legally affirmed nations to nations relationship with American Indian and Alaska Native tribes, which is recognized under the Constitution of the United States, treaties, statutes, exequaturs, and court decisions, blah, 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 all that stuff. But required agencies to submit detailed plans of action to implement the policies and directives of the Executive Order 13175. In response, all agencies subject to Executive Order 13175 submitted plans of action, including over 50 agencies that submitted a consultation plan of action for the first time. Agencies also conducted more than 90 national level tribal consultations focusing specifically on agency tribal consultation policies. I highlighted that because the state of Nevada just did the same thing they did, which is they wrote a state tribal consultation policy without consulting with the tribes. They didn't do that either. Having virtual meetings, 1 hour meetings, and with asking questions in that 1 hour meeting, literally cutting people off because time ran out, is not consultation. They're calling it that. I'm saying it's not. And I'll argue about that forever with EPA. So it's ironic that they're using that to write it, but it still kind of worked out, the Biden memo, I think. So consultation policy, why is a big part of the policy in the language. Who's going to represent the tribe? Who's going to represent the agency? Why are we meeting? Why are we talking? Is it an action? Is it policy? The Biden memo goes over policy, but I think it's applicable to actions too. So tribal consultation is a two-way nation-to-nation exchange of information and dialogue between official representatives of the United States and all tribal nations regarding federal policies that have tribal implications. Consultation recognizes tribal sovereignty and the nation-to-nation relationship between the United States and tribal nations. It acknowledges that the United States maintains certain treaty and trust responsibilities to tribal nations. Always put treaty in your consultation policy. Consultation requires that information obtained from tribes be given meaningful consideration. Agencies should strive for consensus with tribes or a mutually desired outcome. I'm not going to totally agree with that consensus. Consultation should generally include both federal and tribal officials with decision-making authority regarding the proposed policy, and I include actions that have tribal implications. And these things are important why you should have your legal counsel look over it, because you may decide or think that it's not something that requires it, and the lawyer or maybe one of your technical experts will point out, no, I think it does. The consultation will ensure that applicable information is readily available to all parties, that federal and tribal officials have adequate time to communicate, and after the federal decision, consulting tribal nations are advised to how their input influences decision making. All these principles should be applied to the extent practicable and permitted by law. Keep into account the extent of the law when writing your policy. Have legal counsel look over the policy. This was a big thing with the Thacker Pass lithium mine and their environmental impact statement. And when I first read the draft EIS, I always go to the public comment. What were the comments? How did they respond to the comments? Their EIS consisted of agendas for public meetings. There was no intake comments, how they responded to the comments, and they accepted, BLM accepted that. And EPA, when they made the remarks, the comments to it, didn't even point that out. And then it backfired them because they found out they did not properly research a massacre. And now because they did such a shoddy job, they've been spending a lot of time catching up on that. So so all the principles should be applied to the extent practicable and permitted by law. There are key mandates to the memo that tribes should take into account and mirror. Designating an agency point of contact for tribal consultation is part of what the federal agency will do. The tribe needs to do that too. The head of each agency shall consider designating additional points of contact as necessary to facilitate consultation on varied subject matter areas within the agency. So that's designees, and we have that for the RTOC. I'm the head of the RTOC Charter Work Group, and designees are more often going to be consulting rather than the decision makers, because consultation isn't just a meeting, it's a process. And you're going to have your technical experts, you're going to have like your natural resources director and a representative for the tribe meeting with whomever's implementing it for the state or federal agency. And then when they get to a certain decision-making part of it, then the decision makers need to be there. But a lot of the part of the consultation process is meetings between designees. And that's how you get things done a lot of times. The head of each agency shall consider, each agency shall provide the names and contact information of the designated agency points of contact for tribal consultation on its website. Tribes can do similar. Just about every tribe has a website, if not a social media site, but they should post their points of contacts for certain things. I like when tribes have their departments and all their program directors or their contacts. That should suffice. Then they know who to contact, but they should update it. A lot of my job as a liaison is agencies or tribes contacting me on my list of all the tribal contacts I have. And I have my list I share, and I have my secret list. So I just making a joke at a meeting the other day. They're like, Cliff, who really are the people that know what's really happening with the tribe? And I said, you want the truth? The elders cook. I'll call the elders cook up for the tribe. They know everything. Section 4, determining whether consultation is appropriate. So the next page, determining whether it's appropriate. The agency will conduct an early analysis to determine whether consultation is appropriate. Tribes do not have to agree with their determination and demand consultation. That action will initiate another analysis. So if there's a reasonable basis to believe that a policy may have tribal implications consistent with the definition, I'm going to read out again. The agency shall follow the applicable requirements for consultation. Agencies may still engage in tribal consultation even if they determine a policy will not have tribal implications, and should consider doing so if they determine that a policy is of interest to a tribe. And I see Forest Service, USDA doing that. EPA kind of does that too. I know the state does it, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And I get calls from people that are tasked to do certain things, and they don't know. They really don't know the area, and you need to know the area, especially when we're talking about environmental, especially if we're talking things like surface water and all the different things that go along with that. So they may arrive to the wrong decision. So it's good to engage with them and point out that maybe they missed this. Migratory birds come to mind right away. Real too small to see, but so notice of consultation, when inviting a tribe or tribes to consult, the these are the things that they have that you should also have in your consultation policy. Develop a notice of consultation, which includes sufficient information on the topic to be discussed, the date, time, and location of consultations as requested by the agency. So your consultation policy should say when is it initiated and then how often you're going to meet. Maybe have like tiers or levels of things based on it, but it's good to keep open language. That way you can have special meetings, and special meetings are very common during consultation. If consulting virtually or by telephone, link to join or register in advance. Just have these processes in place. It sounds stupid, but not stupid, but you might want to include standard operating procedure type stuff of how we're going to do it, lay it out for the leaders that are going to read this later on. An explanation of any time constraints known to the agency. Look at this as tribes. Deadlines or any written comments on the topic. So how you're going to respond to the deadlines on the topic should be discussed in your consultation policy. Names and contact for agency staff who provide more information. I would maybe put down the title, not really the name. And then they transmit the notice of consultation, provide notice of each 30 days to the tribe. So these are the processes they have for consulting, but in your policy, you should address each of these how you're going to respond on your side. And when you're reading the Biden memo, like, okay, are we going to respond to that? How are we going to respond to that? And address that in your policy as much as you can. Conducting the consultation. So that outlines the agency reps will respect the tribal representatives. It also says that they will ensure that agency representatives with appropriate expertise and to the extent practical decision-making authority regarding the proposed policy are present at the nation consultation. So that's important. And I've seen that. I've seen usually they will bring their technical experts, but too often I see on the tribal side, we only bring our TIPLs, we bring our cultural specialists when the state on their side has the people related to the scientific technical side of water quality, air quality, all sorts of different related items for its Superfund circle of experts. So the tribe has those experts often, and I think sometimes the agencies think that tribes that even have the capacity don't, and they often do. We have a lot of young, smart staff that are educating themselves in the field, and they can do this. So we need to bring our experts there too. The head of each agency should consider conducting the consultation in a manner that prioritizes participation at official tribal government leaders. And so they are tasked to do that. And I think on our end, we should demand to go as high up as we can. I think it's just unreasonable, unrealistic to expect Mike Regan to show up to your consultation with EPA. But the RA, yeah. The regional administrator for certain consultations, you should expect them to show up. At a bare minimum, the director of the division should be consulting. And what I would say is, I'm thinking of Superfund. So the head of the division shows up, but he's not really a decision maker. So when it gets escalated to a certain point, and that can be written in the consultation policy, then it gets to RA level, and then it can get even higher. If it's a certain large decision, I'm thinking big things like the Keystone Pipeline. The tribe should mirror this language and state that their experts and decision makers will also be at the nation-to-nation consultation. Having it written into the tribal policy should translate it to be written in a job description or contracts of the tribe, so we avoid "that's not my job." That happens. You'll get tribal personnel that will kind of be like, "It's not my job. I don't do that. I'm picking up solid waste." No, you're the environmental director. You need to be at this meeting. So make sure when you have a policy, you can write that in there, and then you can say other duties as applied or whatever. You can just say that you're supposed to be there. That way they don't waste your time. Or you can just say you're not the right person for the job. That you signed up for that when you applied for the job. The biodegradable record of consultation. Again, I talked about this with DOD. The head of each agency shall maintain a record of the consultation process that includes a summary of tribal input received, a general explanation of how tribal input influenced or was incorporated into the agency action. If relevant, the general reasoning for why tribal suggestions were not incorporated into the agency action or why consensus could not be attained. The head of each agency shall timely discuss to the affected tribe or tribes the outcome of the consultation and decisions made as a result of the consultation. The head of each agency should consider publicly posting the record of consultation, and then the record of consultation does not waive any privilege or exception to disclosure pursuant to Freedom of Information Act. So your policy should take this section into account. And I don't have any specific language. I was looking for specific language on if your comments are not accepted. And that often happens. What they'll often say is they'll be dismissive. They'll say that your comment from your contractual person is not educated. It's not quantifiable, what they said. And but then again, on the other side, the tribe needs to not expect shoddy work from their consultant. If the consultant is saying this will kill life on the planet and it'll kill 20 generations ahead, that's not a statement. That's just being lazy. Be specific. What specific about that project, that action is going to affect you? Lay out why. If you don't know why, lay out why you don't know why. Training for federal personnel is discussed in the memo. Tribes should also write in their policy identify training or for the relevant personnel. Training that comes to mind are public speaking, conducting meetings, liaison training, public information officer, leadership training, other things. It could be management, program management, project management, but the people that are involved in the process need training. Almost every problem I see in Indian country is training and experience. But a lot of our people, to succeed, they need to be trained. And too often councils or administration don't want them to go out. They're like, they need to be here. And you're like, no, they need to be trained. And so also identifying the training means you can apply it to a budget. So in your GAP or any other grants, you can put it in and you can demand, hey, it's in our consultation policy. I need to get trained on that. I'm supporting capacity building, and it backs you up. Other items to include definitions, scope, authority. I'm going to talk about these things a little later. Recognition that each federal agency has their own process because many were created by law. And too often do we hear by EPA, well, we're different than USDA because this law created this. They can do that, but we can't do that. I'm not buying that. You may write in metrics for the tribe to determine whether a consultation is successful or not. So you can determine in your policy what you consider to be meaningful or productive consultation. And they don't have to accept it or not. You have your sovereignty. So you can say, this is what we consider success. This is what we consider failure. Don't use those words, though. And writing any other items, next page, include the scope of authority. Agencies are very cognizant of authority. What is the authority of this tribal body? Is their capacity high? Do they know what they do? When they sign a contract, are they going to fulfill what they promised? And then then who's signing it? Why is the vice chair signing? Why we need a policy. So again, going back to that, why you need the policy is to support your sovereignty and to not accept that another person is dictating the tone of the conversation. In addition to who meets and why, include the tribe's definition of meaningful consultation, what initiates consultation, what non-leadership personnel are part of the process, when meetings occur, who sets the schedule, who's involved with the creation of the agendas, follow-up items, how meetings will be documented, and who and how they are recorded. When consultation ends, when it ends, that's a big part of consultation. When does it end? And including appendices of resources you use to write the guidance with reference to laws and codes. So when someone from the agency, and they'll say, well, we can't accept, or we don't accept it. And then you go, well, I was basing this on CWA, da-da-da-da-da. And then they're going to kind of shut up, and then they'll go to their general counsel. Approval process. This shall take approval by the tribal council and should be made available to your residents and membership for comment before it is approved. A strong resolution support or proclamation at a minimum. Be aware that a later council may decide to not recognize a policy I talked about with one of the tribes. Write that into the approval and into the forward of the document. This is why it needs to go out to the public for comment and possible vote. I would say a consultation policy should go out to the membership to vote on. Once approved, share with governmental agencies and other relevant groups such as mining and energy companies and tribal groups. Kind of let them know that it's out there, because believe me, that will get their attention. Because for mining companies, it's always about benefit cost analysis, and you're going to cost them more money if you have a policy. Implementation, seek out items of interest by using your identified staff or contractors to look for policy changes or action.
Money. Why aren't
We're making all
this money available?
The three, they don't have a grant writer. And it's kind of a response to for
Fallon, the expansion
the
of the Fallon.
Fallon Naval Base. Their need. So they
Of being told how they're going to communicate,
and
a lasting
good relationship. The
relationship between the tribes and the federal
federal agencies. People like
A good relationship is about honesty. It's about her cooking you dinner. That's a joke there. But really, I mean, it's fair if someone is saying, we're going to talk about football right now.
we're going
You know, that's not a healthy relationship.
and
And you just want to get out of that relationship. And it adds to the trauma,
the
historic trauma. And
so
any questions?
I see one back there.
Hi, Cliff is
Tom Best, Bishop Ray Tribe. You said with the information you're giving us now,
now it's very packed and
6 hour. Do you give trainings for
for that, or
Looking at an expansion,
something that
the answer is no,
but I'll be kind of helping you out, but there'll be
a professional person. But states join in. part of the art. The lead